up, Team Beyond the Week? Today I'm going to talk about a topic that I'm very passionate about. How far to push yourself into a set before stopping. Now before I actually go into this, start dropping words and sentences and ideas on you guys, I want to clarify that I'm going to use all sorts of different words. Some people are very specific about me using the word intensity. I'm going to use the word intensity. I'm going to use a lot of other words. Don't keep them narrowed down and closed-minded to your thought of what that word means. Some people think that intensity literally only refers to the percent of weight compared to your 1 rep max. That's not what we're talking about. Intensity can mean all sorts of different things, how intense you are. Anyways, let's move on. Don't nitpick my words. Now, there's always been this big debate about whether you should go all the way to failure when you do a set, or if you should stop maybe 3, 4, whatever amount of reps before. Like, what should you do? What's the best for you? Well, in my opinion, I feel that every time you work out, you should push yourself until you fail. Because unless you are a very experienced lifter, unless you're like a high intermediate or a pro level lifter, you don't know. And I didn't know either. You know, I just barely got to this point, but you don't know how many reps you need to do this right. Now, this topic is always highly debated, whether you should go to failure on every set or you should stop this many reps before the end of your set. Now, it's always like, oh, this one's better, that one's better. But here's what I'm gonna tell you in my opinion. Yes, there are uses for stopping before failure, because if you go to failure every time, you can fatigue yourself a little early, and if you have enough experience, you can realize when it's time to cut yourself a little short so that you can go a little farther on other things. But here's the caveat, guys. Not everyone has enough experience. I just got to that point where I have enough experience to do this effectively, to actually make using this technique help me instead of hurt me. But I'd say 90% of the people who try to do sets where they don't go to failure, they try to do these different rep ranges and stuff that they think are right, are actually screwing themselves up, or actually stopping themselves, shortchanging themselves of progress. The problem is that people hear this idea that stopping before failure is good for you, and then they just think, oh, I should just never go to failure, and then that's that. And then they screw themselves up, because for the rest of their lifting career, instead of pushing themselves as hard as their body can, instead of getting to 12 reps just barely and getting it, and the next week moving on, now they're just like, oh, I'm just gonna hit 8 reps. A lot of people take this theory as, I'm gonna push until I start to hurt, and then when it starts to hurt, that's when I should stop, because I don't wanna go too far into the hurt, because the hurt's gonna fatigue me, and it's gonna ruin my gains, and I won't be able to push as much. No, that's stupid. If you never challenge yourself to something that's difficult, to something that your body is not used to, your body is never going to respond via chronic adaptations. You have to challenge your body to something new, something that is challenging it to something it's not used to. Therefore, it has to grow to adjust to this new type of stimulus. Now, if you're always shortchanging yourself at 8 reps instead of 12 reps or whatever it is, then you're never going to make any adaptations, because your body is always doing the same thing. When I first started lifting, I exclusively lifted to failure on every set of every exercise, every single day, no matter what, and I made the best gains possible. I guarantee you that if I would have stopped myself a few reps before so that I could continue getting more sets in or whatever, I wouldn't have made it as far. I wouldn't have made as good progress, because I would have always been shortchanging myself, and I would have always been doing half or like 75% amount of the reps that I could have done. So I probably would have been 25% behind the progress that I am now. Now, earlier I did say that stopping before failure is actually sometimes okay, but I did suggest that you should only do that if you're a very experienced lifter. Even in my own lifting now, I barely ever stop short of failure. Failure is a great point and will never fail you. You will always be pushing yourself to the limit of what your body can get to, and then your body will try to adapt to adjust to these new rep ranges or this new weight that you're using. I rarely do this, but on the few occasions that I do stop before failure, it's something like if I want to do 100 squats or something, I'm going to separate my sets so that I don't burn out on the first set and go to failure on 18 reps, and then the next set I can only do 8. If I'm going to do 100 reps, then say I'll do 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. That way I'm stopping before failure every time, but I'm not fatiguing myself so much that I can't continue. Or for example, if I'm doing like biceps before back or something that's going to inhibit another muscle, I'll stop before that muscle gets completely burnt out, and then the major muscle can't be worked because that minor muscle is already giving out. That's pretty much the only time that I would stop before failure. Now, there's going to be so much flack, there's going to be so much conversation, and please, please, please bring it to the comments below. Have a forum of discussion about this. But in my opinion, the easiest, the best, most effective way for anyone to do it is to go to failure almost every set, because you'll never be doubting whether you're going as hard as you can can, because you will be. Well, hopefully you will be. And you will always be progressing because your body will always be challenged to adjust to something new. I think oftentimes there's too many of us trying to change the recipe instead of just following what has worked for years and years and years. Those chocolate chip cookies come out the same perfect way every time. Why are you trying to add cinnamon, brown sugar, all these other weird things to my recipe? I just want to make perfect cookies. So in my opinion, I think you should make it easier for yourself and not trying to manipulate these things. Push as hard as you can in the gym. This is also something that's going to teach you how to push harder, because if you're never pushing yourself to the limit, there's never anything in your mind telling you, oh, I gotta push as hard as I can to make this next set happen. You'll get used to this very docile way of thinking where it's like, oh, I just need to push 80% of my limit. I only need to go almost as hard as I can. That's lame. Go as hard as you can. Every time. Drop that weight. Don't be able to struggle out even one more rep. Your arms can't move. You're pumped. Everything hurts. All that is glorious. Why? Why would you change something that is so perfect in the first place? Alright guys, there's this video. To summarize, basically all I think is that you should go to failure on almost every exercise unless it's going to inhibit one of your later compound movements, or if you are very, very experienced. I'd say at least 5 years in the gym, and then you really have a grasp of what's going on in your body and how to manipulate things without making regression or without stopping yourself from progression. That's just my opinion though. I love to drop these little idea bombs on you guys. I woke up this morning, I had this going through my head, and I was like, I have to make a video about this because I feel like a lot of people could benefit from it. So if you like this video, if you appreciated what I said, or if you have any opinions for or against my argument, please leave them in the comments below so we can talk about this a little bit, get a little bit of form of discussion going. Thank you guys again for checking out the video. Team Beyond the Week, Big J.
Lift heavy or die MIRIN!
Yeah!